Welcome to the Takeoff Podcast, the go-to construction podcast for construction professionals seeking inspiration, education, or motivation for the next steps in their career. Each Monday, you'll be joined by me, Mick Donaghy, Managing Director of Gedden Executive Recruitment and a respected name from the industry. A construction leader, a business owner, or someone in the thick of the action. The whole premise of this podcast is for you to get something from it. An idea, a connection, a mentor, whatever it is, I hope you get it. And I hope you enjoy the show. Without further ado, let's get into it. My first question for you today, Michelle, is it's a really difficult environment. You know, we're seeing already in 2024 that there is so much going on. We're seeing different contractors, different builders already going bust. So how can subcontractors set themselves up for success in 2024?
So appropriate that you sort of precursored the whole thing with 2024 is sort of like doomsday prepping. So setting yourself up for success, like, oh, that sounds like a really positive, let's go out and do positive things. But for me, it's like belts and braces, don't come a gutser. And what I really love about our industry at the moment is that we've had this huge revolution of staffers realising that their big shiny builder is not invincible. And so staffers of building companies are realising, hey, I'm going to possibly outlive this builder. My career's a marathon. I need to have good relationships with these subbies because they will work for me. They can be my trustworthy go-to when I go work for my new builder, and I need to be able to do a good, successful project. So in terms of setting yourself up for success, if you're a subcontractor in 2024, you've got such a good opportunity to negotiate better contract terms because the staff are right for it. Like the staff really are just going like this terrible document that I feel like crap asking you to sign. That is not like, that's not me. That's not what I would ask you to sign if this was my company. So the staff are really receptive to negotiating better and fairer contract terms. But we also got new laws last year that give you better rights to fairer contract terms as well. So number one is don't wait to go to court to say, oh, that was an unfair contract. Go and negotiate better and fairer contract terms so that you can reap the benefits of those fairer trade terms and have better quality of project life now. So that's the first thing I'd be doing if I'm a 2024 subby. The second thing is learn how to do due diligence on your builders because you can do it for free online. You just need to know where to go to do it. So for example, if you're in Queensland, you can do a Queensland Courts party search lookup on anyone and you can look up your builder and see who they're in court with. You can go to a trade credit insurance broker and ask them for a quote on a builder and they'll tell you whether or not trade credit insurers are providing cover on that builder. That's a due diligence step. It's getting intelligence and information about whether or not you should be contracting with a particular builder. Really good example is St Hilliers last week. Absolute out of the blue, just like we had indications that they were having issues, but no more than half a dozen other builders who are also doing the same thing. So how do you pick the one that's going to go broke? Well, you couldn't get trade credit insurance over St Hilliers because people who were involved in that business had been in trouble before. So that's one indicator of maybe go and quote elsewhere because you can dodge a bullet in that way. The other thing is trade credit insurance. To me, if you've got public liability and work cover, or if you need professional indemnity insurance and you have that, they're baseline insurance policies. But if I'm a subby in 2024, I want to be realising that these insurance policies are assets. They're not just bills to pay. So if you get a trade credit insurance policy over your revenue and that insurance policy covers you for preference payments, like that to me, I would not be doing business with these builders without one because how do you guarantee you're going to get paid? You're just literally rolling the dice again and again and again if you don't have that. And the last thing I'd do is talk to somebody about the personal property security register, not just if you've got forklifts or bobcats or drill rigs or whatever that you're leaving on people's sites. You can use the PPS to become a secured creditor for money owed to you, and that will protect you from preference payments as well. So if you can't get a trade credit insurance policy over a builder, tell them that you need a PPS agreement with them. And the builder should be reasonable about that because they need to be realistic about whether subbies want to work with them if they're not insurable. And at least then, if you get paid $1 million by that builder because you're a form worker and you're going to do $1 million worth of work this month, the liquidator doesn't come looking at you for a preference payment, particularly if you're asking for deposits. Because if you get paid in advance, it could be an indication that it might have been a preference payment as well. I'd go back to first principles. It's great to be all like rosy and excited about business and go, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to grow, I'm going to kick down doors. Don't just kick down any door, like pick your doors.
That's super interesting because I think I look at my business as like nearly like a tiny subcontractor in some ways, because we do work with all of these big main contractors as well. And so I'm experiencing it at the moment in slightly different ways, but it's a bit scary sometimes, to say no to that work or to go in to do all that sort of due diligence, because you're thinking that's good for my brand, working with X company is kind of the type of work that I've always dreamed of. But from what I'm hearing is it doesn't always end up in that sort of environment. It's not always rosy.
You won't be immune to preference payments either. So that's something to bear in mind, that it's not just about getting paid, it's about staying paid as well. And liquidators have a strict legal obligation to look into those things. They have to look, they call it the relation back date. They have to look back 6 months on the date the liquidator is appointed and go, right, who was paid?
Right, guys, so I'm absolutely pumped to say the Takeoff podcast is proud to be sponsored by RIB Software, the company behind some of the leading estimating software in the entire planet, including Costex, Candy, CX, and more. So firstly, if you didn't know, RIB are a powerhouse at providing innovative software solutions to the construction and engineering markets. They have over 500,000 users globally, are known universally as a solution provider for your entire project lifecycle, from planning to construction and beyond. RIB solutions help to ultimately connect people, processes, and data, so your project comes within budget, on time, and to the quality desired, all whilst reducing your business's carbon footprint. All this stuff matters, and RIB has the solutions. So if you're interested in finding out more, get on over to rib-software.com, reach out to your local team and quote Takeoff Podcast. For every listener who buys a subscription of RIB Costex, they will provide one free online training course. Okay, guys, back to the episode.
And what of that might have been a preference payment. So lawyers aren't immune either, Mick. It's something that when you've got a builder who discloses to you how close they are to the line, and you might even be an insolvency lawyer, there is a good chance that you could be subjected to preference payments and you might not get paid as well. So it's a really difficult thing.
Can you just describe to me what preference payments mean, in terms of anyone out there that might not know, including myself?
So a preference payment is where when a company is going broke, the people within the company make a decision to pay somebody some money. And a preferential payment is a payment that could be seen to be of preference over other creditors for a particular reason. So when you look at whether it would be a preference payment, one of the indicators is, did you have any idea this person was struggling financially? And the liquidators will look to, did you get paid in advance? Did you get a payment plan? Like where you owed money, but then you had a payment plan. That's where it can get quite difficult as well.
In terms of what are good payment terms, because, I've dealt with businesses and they're real terrible payment terms. There was one recently, they were looking to pay, it was something like the month after the month after. So basically it was 2 months and then 30 days, and I was like, effectively, we're not going to get paid for 3 months. This is insane, and if anyone signed up to that, they'd be crazy.
It's like a financial quarter.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So in different states and territories have different rules around the maximum durations that a builder can string a subcontractor out. So in Queensland, you're not allowed to legally be paid later than 25 business days after you give your invoice.
Okay.
And that's in the QBCC Act. So in New South Wales, the statutory time frame is 20 business days after the payment claim is given. So I can't really rattle off all of the states and territories. There are 8. But in your state or territory, it's possible that there might be a time frame that is the latest a builder can pay you. So that's for anyone under the Security of Payment Act who does work for a construction contract. Architects, engineers, surveyors, estimators, there are consultants who fall within the category of doing work under a construction contract. I can't say that recruitment would be unless you were doing recruitment for a particular project. Recruitment is possible that you might fall under that category. But what are good payment terms? If you're JB Hi-Fi, you're getting paid before you leave the building. That's it's really in the context of what you're doing. In terms of consultants, you need to think about how much you want to give the builder before you've got something back. So we can't let them have all of our eggs in their basket without them giving you something in return as well.
Interesting. I think it's really important that people know this information, and just try and get an idea of where things sit, because quite often subcontractors, in my experience, have been maybe someone who started off on site, he's worked his way up as a concreter. All of a sudden, it's like, do you know anybody who could do concrete work? He knows a couple of guys. And then, he's actually went, look, I actually know 3 or 4. Maybe I could start my own concreting company. I actually had a friend recently. He's in that space, formwork, and he actually was asking me about contracts. I'm like, I'm the last person you want to speak to about contracts. So like, this is really important information, Michelle. And I don't think, I guess, people understand what they're signing up to most of the time.
Yeah. There's definitely an evolution. So if you started as an apprentice, then maybe you become a leading hand, and then you want to be paid on ABN because you can see the grass is greener financially. You want some flexibility to contract with some other people. And then you get to this tipping point when you're an ABN worker where you sort of go, I want to have my own business. But there's this little hurdle you've got to get over where you want to be paid weekly still. And it doesn't work like that. So it is a really difficult thing. In terms of payment terms for subcontractors, if you're getting paid later than 25 business days after you put your invoice in, I'd be changing those payment terms. You also need to think about payment for unfixed goods. So if you're a structural steel subby, I think I might have even used these guys as an example in our last episode together, where those guys have just got the worst lot in life, where they're importing steel, manufacturing steel, sending it away to the powder coater, carrying the cost of that all the way to the bank, and then they have to wait for the builder to be ready for them on site. Such a high risk thing to have to bankroll. And for years and years and years, they wouldn't get paid anything in advance of delivery and fixing it to site unless they were giving big fat bank guarantees back to the builder. On the flip side, as a lawyer, I can see the sense in having security if you're parting with cash. If you go and give a structural steel subby 750 grand and they close their doors tomorrow, the builder's going to feel pretty dumb. It's about striking a balance between making sure that you have the ability to perform under the contract. I think that's really mindset evolution that builders are starting to realise, is that it was always like, just pay them as little as you possibly can until you have to pay them. But now they're realising, well, if we want these subbies to actually perform, maybe we should give them some cash so they can buy the stuff, so that they're not borrowing from Peter to pay Paul to be able to resource our job.
Well, the best main contractors that I have experience with really know the value of their subcontractors. They know that they have nothing without those are actually doing the work or hands-on. Hopefully someone's getting something from this. And if you're out there and you're listening, hopefully you can say, well, from the takeoff, I was listening to Michelle and, she's actually saying that 25 days, I need to change things up. I need to switch things up. Before you go today, guys, I'm just going to ask you to do one thing. Can you please go to Apple right now or Spotify right now and just give us those 5 stars? Hit that 5-star button. It makes such a difference you wouldn't believe. The whole idea of this show is to inspire, educate and motivate our listeners. And we only do that if we're getting the best guests. The best guests want to see data. They want to see information. They want to see how many listeners that we get. And so all of this stuff is really, really important. So if you can just literally go and do that today, if you enjoy the show, just go and hit that 5-star button. It makes such a difference. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We're going to continue to push this out there every Monday. So if you can, hit that 5-star button. And if you can't, even share it with a friend. Go on to WhatsApp, flick it on to your crew. Guys, thank you so much for listening. On to next week.